Hey, welcome back to another live cast here on Bass 365. It's been a tough week. I'm not going to lie to you. It's been a tough week. I'm sure by now anybody that knows anything about bass fishing has heard about the passing of Aaron Martens, and want to send out all our condolences to the family. It's just a horrible thing. Aaron was a amazing human being and a heck of a fisherman and a really good friend to Bass 365. So it's been a little bit of a challenge, but we're going to move forward here. And tonight we have a really special guest, a guy I've been wanting to have on for a long time. A friend, a guy I call a friend that I've known for many years, and he's a heck of an angler. So let's go ahead and get this thing started. If you don't know him, like everybody to welcome Justin Kerr. What's up, Justin?
Hey, how are you?
Hey, brother, how you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me.
It's been a tough week, and it's excited to have you on and talk a little fishing tonight and maybe learn something.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's been a pretty rough month actually, and with Aaron going on, and Aaron and I have been good friends since I was I think 17 or 18 years old. So I'm 40 now, so it's been a long time. So right. It was a rough patch for sure. So just trying to keep it positive and like he would, and do my best,
That's right. And speaking of doing your best, you've had a pretty solid year with a Bassmaster Classic appearance, a Toyota Championship appearance. Maybe talk a little bit about the road you took to get to the Classic. I personally feel that's one of the hardest ways to achieve a Classic berth.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I got super fortunate. And I've only fished it one time. I fished the Nation, and I would like to do it again. And it was an awesome experience to get to the Classic that way. But yeah, I mean, everybody's so good from every state that comes, and a lot of guys sometimes don't get that opportunity to get to the Classic. And other than the way I came, there's a lot of really good fishermen that have normal jobs or can't do this or can't do that. So to have the Nation available to guys like me that step back from things for a long time. And, obviously now I'm trying to go forward a little bit. So, just having that available is incredible for, bass to have that and go to the Classic is, it's the biggest tournament in fishing. So just at least go one time was a big goal of mine. And, I swang for the fence and it didn't work out, but, that's the way it is. And, to see somebody like Hank Cherry win back-to-back and be part of that, and see it is pretty special deal because that doesn't happen very much. So it was an experience.
And just how good is Hank with that jerkbait? We need to have him back on for a fall jerkbaiting class, I believe.
Yeah, he's amazing. And, seeing his career go on, I remember a couple classics that he should have won, losing fish. And, so, he was due to win a couple of them for sure.
That's right. And, another good guy. We say that so much in this sport business, whatever you want to call it. But I can honestly say it's you're not going to find a better group of people on the planet than bass fishermen. They give you a shirt off your back most of the time. Depends on how cold it is, but most of the time.
Depends on what you did on their spot or something that day.
That's right. Exactly. But, for the most part, it's a great group of guys.
Absolutely.
And then, then you made it to the Toyota Championship as well.
Yeah. I actually had a real rough year this year in MLF. I think it was the first year. I think I didn't even get a check at my home lake. So I was fortunate to make it in through that. And, I had an okay tournament on my standpoint. I lost a lot of key fish that I needed, but I still was able to, have a good finish and have a good showing for the West.
Absolutely. And it's amazing to me the quality of anglers that come from the West Coast. And I always ask this question when I have a West Coast guy on. What makes the anglers from out there so good? I mean, why are they able to come east and perform, at the highest level?
What I think it is, obviously there's pressure now. Everyone's seen a lot what's gone on with COVID. Everywhere's super pressured fisheries now. So, but I think the West Coast has been so pressured for so long that you've had to learn how to fish for them. The migratory patterns and and actually driving navigation in the boat is more or less pretty simple on the West Coast. You know, we don't have big weather changes, so the fish will stay in a spot, and you know, for a couple months or you know, a month-long period of time, and the navigation of, you know, aspect, you don't have to worry about running up on some reef that's, you know, if you run outside the channel marker, you take off your lower unit. So
Right.
the fishing aspect coming from the west is pretty difficult because of the pressure. So going out east, I think once they've learned the navigation and the migratory patterns of the fishing seems to be pretty easy for those guys, you know. And for me, I haven't really figured it out too much yet. They switch so much for me out there, and I'm so used to a lot of the time they stay on the West Coast. You can have the same area for, you know, going for a month long, you know, and that does not happen out east at all. So I think that's the biggest key is, you know, the migratory patterns of the fish, and the navigation is a big deal. And those guys are so good with graphs these days. And, you know, I'm not the best with graphs at all. I don't even have a live yet. So, you know, those guys are so good with it, and they find all offshore spots, and, you know, they just become very, very good fishermen.
It's crazy where the electronics have come over the, you know, I'd say the past 5 years.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And you know, you being, I'm not gonna say older, but
Yeah,
you've seen it all. I mean, you've seen it all from flashers to, you know, to what we have today. And I'll tell you, I've been lucky enough to have some experience with that live. It's legitimate.
Oh, it is awesome. Yeah.
But I also feel like it can be a, you know, it can hurt you too, because maybe you spend too much time looking at that and not fishing.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it just depends on, I think, the situation and, you know, what the fish are obviously doing at that time. But you know, I've moved to the Colorado River about 12 years ago, and I just fish shallow. You know, I do a lot of, you know, flipping and a lot of, you know, shallow chatterbait fishing and crankbait fishing. And, you know, obviously now with the pressure, that's kind of changing on me. I'm having a little tougher go in the last couple of years, or last year, with all the pressure that we've had. But, you know, that's just how I fish. And I haven't felt like I needed it yet, but I know I need it for coming up here in the winter into pre-spawn. It seems like it's a huge deal. So I'll be probably getting that thing pretty soon.
Well, you know, the topic of the show, I've got several things I want to touch on, but the main topic of the show was those big swim baits.
Yeah.
And maybe just a beginner's class on throwing those big things, and talk about, you know, some of your favorite baits, maybe some rod and reel setups, line. I had a discussion with somebody the other day. What's the best line to use on a big, you know, $100 swim bait? Yeah. I say Brave, because I'm not losing that.
Lose it, right?
But I don't know that that's necessarily right. So I'm gonna turn the show over to you, let you do your thing for a little bit, and we've got a couple questions already, it looks like, but we'll hold those, you know, to later on, and then we'll go over into some fall bait fishing, some fall fishing tips, and talk a little bit about you know, some other evergreen baits and stuff like that. So right now, let's hear about some big baits and how to fish them from Justin.
All right. Hey, everybody. So swim bait fishing, it's a there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can go about it. You know, some people are trophy fishermen and they fish giant swim baits for big fish. West Coast is a lot of trout fishing, you know, fishing for, you know, fish that eats trout. And obviously you get a lot of that in like Atlanta area. There's some places that have big spots that eat trout. And obviously, you know, you have blueback herring out east. We don't have that here, but we do now have gizzard shad a lot in the Colorado River. So it's, you know, one of those different type of deals where you can use swim baits to even locate fish. I mean, you don't necessarily have to catch them on it. You can use it to draw up fish, schools of fish, big fish too. So, you know, out here, out in West, the gizzard shad have played a huge factor on the Colorado River chain. So, you know, I've been using a couple different baits lately. Obviously in the fall, we're in the fall now, and I'll throw some big top waters, some lunker punkers, some Blam 300 is a really good bait. And, you know, I'm using super heavy rod, like a 8'6" Evergreen combat stick with a Alexa 400, straight braid to, either 25 or 30 pound mono leader. I use that mono leader just so it gets a little bit of stretch when they eat it. And it's most of the baits are floating baits if you're fishing that type of trout imitation during the fall, fishing over maybe 15, 20 feet of water. Sometimes if the trees or, habitat comes up a little bit, you can catch them, just casting around over deep water. So that's a really big thing at this time of year that I do. Early in the year when you're fishing swim baits, you want to fish some a little slower. Out west, we have a lot of places like Clear Lake and the Delta where you can fish a little slower swim baits like Huddlestons and, bottom bouncing swim baits with, a big kick tail that, causes a lot of commotion. So there's just, like I said, there's so many different ways to fish swim baits. You can, like I said, you could be targeting big fish. Only tournament swim bait fishing is more of, size swim baits that you're going to get more percentage bites on, a little bit smaller baits, smaller glide baits, just obviously a Kitech, on a lead head or a Kitech on a flashy swimmer. There's, like I said, there's so many different ways to fish swim baits, and it's almost like you have to just become a swim bait fisherman. Like for me, a lot of the time, at this time of year, obviously I fish a lot of big swim baits, but I kind of threw the really big swim baits out of my arsenal for many years now, fishing tournaments, just because that big swim bait, unless I have them, really got a good bag of fish to throw that big swim bait to get the big bite. Other than that, I've kind of narrowed it down to smaller swim baits, more like 4 to 6 inch swim baits if you're going to get, tournament driven fish, and it's a whole different way to fish. So like I said, there's so many different ways to fish swim baits, and it's one of my favorite ways to fish. Of course, just to trick some of those big fish. And like I said, this time of year is the water's just starting to get cooler, and out west here it is, and that big top water is a big fish catching bait for sure. So like I said, everyone needs to try them, man. They're very addicting, and you can spend a lot of money on swim baits, but you can catch a lot of big bass for sure.
So Justin, speaking specifically about the bigger baits, again, they're not something that a tournament guy is going to want to use.
Right.
I've watched enough videos and listened to you enough to know that it's a full commitment thing.
Yes.
And would you think, somebody that wanted to learn to fish swim baits, they're probably better off just to leave the big ones especially, to leave everything else at home and just take a couple rods with some big baits and force themselves to go fish it?
Yeah. A lot of times, especially with big swim baits, you can have, a day where you go out and you catch 6, 7 fish, and then for 3 or 4 days, you never get bit. So that's just how it is, and, depending on the situation, obviously. But if you really want to catch a big fish, a swim bait is the best way to catch one. And you just have to literally leave everything at home and just throw a swim bait all day long for days on end. And, once in a while, you'll find that area that you'll catch a lot of fish, actually. And, you'll have one good day and one bad day, and one good day and one bad day. So it's just one of those, the style of fishing, you really have to commit to it. It's kind of like anything else. I mean, on some things, like if you have a buzzbait bite going or something, you're just chucking a buzzbait all day. I know big swim bait, it gets hard and tiring throwing it all day, but to catch 8 and 10 pounders, sometimes it's all worth it when you get one. So it's fun.
And I know that from the little bit that I've messed around with them, it's that bite can be addictive, and
yes,
it can definitely lead you astray as far as you catch one or get a bite.
Mm-hmm.
You might not, you're exactly right. You might fish all day and not get another bite, but it's addictive.
Yes, and absolutely. I mean, another thing too is like in the spring, is a lot of time it's good to throw like a big glide bait or something, and you can sometimes find big females that they don't even want to bite. They'll just follow it off the bed, or find an area where they're, posted up pre-spawn, and they'll just chase it up, and they don't necessarily eat it, but at least you kind of know. And there's been more times than one that you've come into that area and thrown something else in there and, caught some huge fish because you knew they were in there. And that happens a lot.
If nothing else from this, you got a new fan tonight. Missouri swim bait slinger. He's been throwing them there for years in the Ozarks region, and now he needs to start following it. So that's good. We accomplished something there, right? And he did say in a follow-up that Gizzard Chad had become a big
player,
big factor there.
Yeah.
Sean wants to know what glide baits right now in the cold are you using?
Well, there's two different ones that I've been messing with for a while that I kind of staple with using is, I use a Gamecraft, and I'll use that Storm Arashi.
Right.
And those should just, first of all, that Gamecraft, it pushes water like you've never seen. You can get it to really move. And I learned that from Paul Bailey, who's a, really good swim bait fisherman. And, he told me that you gotta really fish this thing, man, and check it out. And when you can get it just going right, man, it'll push water, and it'll go about 3 to 4 feet to the side. So it has a really good movement. And obviously that Arashi Storm, Brandon Polinick, anything he makes he's gonna make to catch fish. So it's just a good bait, So those are the ones for glide baits that I've been using for the last little bit. And that's, when I pick up one, that's what I'm picking up.
I'm just kind of glancing through these things right now. If you had one swim bait to tell somebody to go out and get to try, to get started with, what would it be? Or can you even do it with one?
Yeah, I don't know if you can do it. And like I said, it all, just like anything, it depends on your situation, what forage fish you have in there. Cold water, warm water, all that. So, this time of year, for me at this time of year, I would either throw a glide bait or I'd throw a big top water, in the fall time, a big top water, like, 6 to 8, 10 inch, something big something big on the surface. I throw a lot of lunker punkers. It's been around for a long time. I don't know if they even make them that much anymore, but that bait it's some are silent, some aren't. So it's a big profile, and it gets a lot of big bites.
So we got a couple people just going back and forth in the comments. We'll let them do their thing there. So I feel like we've gotten some insight on swim bait fishing. Now let's kind of move on to something that's pretty special to both of us. Evergreen.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. The lineup of baits they have are pretty impressive. And I think still a lot of people haven't heard of Evergreen. I mean, unless you're really a bass head, you probably don't know.
Absolutely.
So maybe just give us a quick little rundown of, you've been with Evergreen a long time, so you've seen the evolution. Maybe talk about some of your favorites and maybe some fall baits guys may want to pick up and throw around a little bit.
Yeah, so I've been with Evergreen since 2008, and the company is just an amazing group of people. The way they do things, the way they make baits, every designer is set for one bait only. So when they make it like as perfect as they can. So, man, they have everything that under the sun that you could think of. Obviously, out in the United States, they don't carry everything that they carry out in Japan, but with the jackhammer alone, and some of the CR series that they've made, brought in the U.S. has been just incredible. So, like I said, I've been with them since 2008. They've helped me win a lot of tournaments out here, and their stuff is just so high end, everything they use. So I've been super fortunate to be with them, and I couldn't ask for a better company and better group of guys. So, like I said, they're just one of these companies that they take pride in everything they do. So, this time of year, I'm using a lot of that flat force crankbait,
That's what I was coming on to get you to talk a little bit about, because I know a lot of this is really the first year that it's been commonplace.
Yeah. So
And
this
yeah, so
bait
I'm gonna
right
get
here,
back off there.
you can see that bait right there. That bait right there is really, really good bait. And I throw it on a lot of times from 12 to 10 pound line, and I'm using their Combat Series 7-1M. It's a medium rod. I'm throwing 10 to 12 pound. 10 pound, it'll actually get down a lot deeper than you'd think. It'll get down about 7 foot. So you have a little bit deeper grass. It comes right through the grass really good, ripping it out. I've been very impressed with the bait. We've been using it for about 3 years now, I bet. And I think they put it out about a year ago. So it's a really, really good bait. Like I said, we've been using it a while, so it catches them everywhere I go. I just caught them at Grand on it. Caught them the first day. The second day they were gone. I just should have thrown top water, but the first day, man, they ate that thing really good. So it's an awesome bait.
And talking about top order and Evergreen, the shower blows has got to be one of the best, right?
Yeah, that thing's been around for, man, I'd say maybe about 15 years or so. So, a lot of companies did copy that bait, and they didn't have it in the United States. So people were just saying, oh, wow, you see that bait, let's just bring it out in the United States and put it under their own. And they're the original original makers of that bait. And yeah, you can literally get it to do almost a 180 if you can walk it in the same spot. So it's an awesome bait. It's really, really done well over here. And it's a staple. We got a bunch of new colors coming out and this year, and it's you'll see them. They'll be really nice.
How about the littler version of the shower blows? They released it, I believe, it either Classic or ICAST this year. Have you had any time with that?
Yeah, yeah, it's a 77, I believe.
That's right.
Yeah, I haven't really thrown it too much yet. I haven't really gone to a place that has little tiny bait right now. It's all been big stuff. So I've been throwing a lot of bigger baits. So I've been throwing a lot of the bigger shower blows, 150 actually. So, it's probably going to have its place, just like anything else. It's probably a bait that you need to use in super clear water and highly pressured fish.
Right. And then, hey, back to the swim bait thing. Sean was going back with Missouri swim bait slinger, and it's a pretty good question with the with the fluorocarbon. I mean, with the braid, sometimes you'll get those. I call them wind knots or whatever they are. Is there any way to avoid that with those big baits? Because I mean, I can only imagine a 2-ounce bait and
and it's snapping off. Like that. Yeah, and it snaps off. No, I mean, like I said, no. For me, just growing up, I think too, fishing saltwater in the ocean and casting, surface irons and stuff has probably taught me how to throw a lot of that. But a lot of it's also in how you cast the lure. So sometimes if you use more of your wrist, you'll end up snapping it off. And I've seen a couple buddies do that with like Depths 250s where they go, oh, I'll tie it on. Look at this brand new bait. And they literally tie it on and cast it and snap it right off. So it does happen. And it's more of a learning how to cast those big baits. But, like I said, that's just fishing the topwater bait with that braid to the leader a lot. If you're fishing a big glide bait or something like that, I'll use a lot of times just 25 or 20 fluorocarbon. And that eliminates that for sure. That's all I'll use pretty much is just fluorocarbon.
So we're jumping around a lot, guys, so you just have to bear with us. But this is just one of those shows where I got questions, and that's never good when that happens.
Yeah, that's fine.
How about as far as Evergreen? Anything else that's really special that guys probably overlook, or is there anything coming that we should be excited about that about?
Yeah, so the thing that I've been using, another thing that I've been using a lot is their new Grass Ripper Jig. I've been using that. We changed the hook in it a little bit, but I've been using that for about 5 years, and it's a really, really good swim jig. And obviously, like the jackhammer is obviously going to be around forever. And that Grass Ripper swim jig is really awesome. It's the head design on it, it just pushes the grass out of the way or the trees. I use it at Mead a lot, you know, a couple years ago, and I put a swim bait on there, and they make them from, you know, quarter ounce up to 5/8. So it's a really cool bait. It has a really good head wobble, good action. I think that's going to be a next good player for sure.
I think Height had some pretty good success on it this year, and I
Oh,
think Cody caught some fish on it as well. So we've been hearing a lot about it. This is the first time we've really talked about it on a show that I can remember.
yeah.
So
Yeah, it's a really good swim jig. It really is. And we changed the hook on it. It's the hook that they put inside the stealth blade. So it's before there was a little bit smaller hook. I think it was like a 3/0, and I think it's up to like a 4/0 now. So that was a big move because I did lose some fish on the smaller hook before, and so we changed it around. So it's going to be a good player for sure.
So what do you think about, you know, the chatterbait's been out for I don't know how long, what, 15 years at least, right?
Yep.
What makes that bait so good? You know, usually baits like that will go through a cycle where they'll have downtime, and then it'll resurge and come back. But it seems like to me the chatterbait started off good, and it's only gotten better. There hadn't been a time
where it's died off. Yeah, it reminds me of like a square bill deal. You know, a square bill fishing is going to be around forever. So it's the same type of thing. I think that shallow water fish, and obviously some people fish them deep. We have them up into 1 ounce and a quarter, and that's a good way to catch them too. But I think just having that thing up shallow, just the vibration alone, it just triggers them. And obviously with a jackhammer, it's a lot of the time it's the sound, obviously with the head of the blade hitting there, and just having that right sound and the right vibration. It runs true all the time, and I think that's why it's been such a good bait. But alone, besides a jackhammer, just the chatterbait in general, I think skirted jigs, swim jigs, spinner baits, things that have skirted, material, I think have just always been a big bass catcher. So I think with that vibration and the skirt and the whole deal, they just can't resist it.
Right. So with that, I got to ask, when do you use a spinnerbait versus a chatterbait or a jackhammer? And maybe in your mind, what are some of the differences in different situations where you throw one or the other?
Yeah, I like spinnerbaits. I've been coming back to spinnerbait a lot more now. Everybody does throw chatterbaits, so I think just getting a little different look again, and I like them obviously a little bit earlier in the year. You can hover the bait, a little bit better than a chatterbait. A lot of the time, you can hover that big spinnerbait, and with the right blade on there, you can get it to stay in that strike zone a little longer, and it's always triggered big bass. Spinnerbait has, and it's one of the best things around any laydown, a spinnerbait, buzzbait, that type of situation. So that's when I usually throw spinnerbait is, if we have a lot of laydown trees or, some heavy wind or early in the year when I need to kind of hover the bait in the area. I'll use
right. And that jackhammer will give you a hard time around those laydowns for sure. At least it does. It does me. Sean wanted to know again, are there any secret hush evergreen baits that are kind of under the radar that are out there that, are those overlooked baits? And there always seem to be some.
There's obviously they have a lot of different baits, and there's some baits in Japan that we can't, obviously can't get and out here in the US. And I think they have a new bait that they just came out with. It's I'm pretty interested to play with it here coming up in the early in the year, like January, February, and it's more like a Rapala, what is that? Like a shad wrap, like a bigger shad wrap. So I'm looking forward to fishing something like that. It feels really good in the water. Has a lot of good vibration, and it seems to come pretty smoothly through the water. So I'm looking forward to that bait, and I think it's an X over. It's a Japanese only bait, but I think that's going to be a new bait that's going to be a big player.
And y'all have some influence into what they import over here, right?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yes. Brett a little bit, he's, obviously fishing the tour, and Cody fishing the tours. They have a little bit better insight of what, guys are, fishing all across the country. Because me being limited sometimes to just the West Coast, like I said, a lot of our stuff has to be real pretty out here, and sometimes they don't really care out there. So, that just having those two guys, and with their expertise and their knowledge, and it really helps for sure.
Right. So as far as the rods, you're using Evergreen rods.
Yep.
Maybe kind of give us a quick run through of the lineup, and what the thing I think is most amazing about it. They're very high quality rods, but the price point isn't bad. I mean, in today's market, it's not bad at all.
No, it's good.
Just go ahead and talk about the rods for a little bit, and we'll have some more questions for you in a minute, I'm sure.
Okay. Yeah, so Evergreen, obviously they have the combat stick. There's been about 3 rods or 4 rods that I've really, really fallen in love with. Obviously, I used to use all their Japanese rods, so they kind of took with Brett and I and other anglers. They've kind of narrowed down certain things that we all liked from other rods that from before. So there's a 7-1M. That's a shallow cranking rod. You can throw a popper on it. That's one of my favorite rods. I use it all the time. I probably have 3 or 4 of them in the boat all the time. Popper, I throw, like I said, I throw a popper on it. I throw Piccolo crankbait, a CR crankbait on it. I'll throw that flat force on it. So that rod alone is one of my favorites. And I obviously use jackhammer rod. I use a little bit more than Brett's jackhammer 7.3 rod. I'll use that 7-foot rod. It's a little softer. It's a glass rod. It's just a little softer for a little bit lighter jackhammers, or rattle trap I'll throw on it. It's a 7-foot medium glass, and that rod's an awesome rod for a lot of different situations. And let's see what other ones that I use a lot of. 7.3 heavy. I use a 7.3 heavy a lot for a jig, and obviously that new swim jig, that Grass Ripper, I'll use that on 16 to 20 pound line. And, I'll fish it between, 20 foot up to, obviously 6 inches of water. So it gets them really good. It's a stout rod. It actually has a lot of good backbone to it. That's a good rod that I've been using. And I obviously use that 7.8 extra heavy. And that's the rod I throw a lot of my big top waters on, with braid the leader. And it's been just an awesome rod.
Awesome. You brought up one of those overlooked baits that's probably a secret one, the Piccolo.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have one in front of me, but if you haven't seen it, it's just a small little crankbait. When the bait's small, it's a good one. It runs great, and you can get some depth out of it as well.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts or opinions on that one, Justin? Or
yeah, I actually like that crankbait a lot. I've done really well on it. Actually, December, January, it's a really, really good bait. It is very, very small. You can cast it though really far, especially with that 7.1M. Cast it a long way. You would be surprised that you can cast it as good as you can, because it's literally like 1.5 inches long. But it goes down about 5 foot, and when they're on little bait, especially, and we have a lot of super clear water here. And when they're on that little bait, little crawdad, whatever it is, I think I've caught biggest one I've caught on it's 9 out of Havasu. I caught a 9-pounder on it. So
on that little bitty bait.
That little bait,
wow.
Yeah. So
I bet that was interesting.
Yeah, it was a good fight. It was definitely a good fight. It had on 10-pound in a marina, so it got me pretty good. But it's definitely a really good little bait. I was, like I said, I was first shocked on how really good it casts. And you would think a lot of time those little baits you got to throw on a spin rod or something like that, and you can just put on 10 and 12-pound line and throw it on a bait caster. So it's a cool bait.
Right. And, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the reels you use. Let's get into that, because I think that's a critical part of any bait.
Yeah. Of course, like I said, I mostly use Daiwas. I do have a little mix and match of some of my older reels. I use, like I said, on the bigger stuff, I use Lexa 400s on some of the big swim baits and big top waters. And then I'll use just, Tatula's, 8-to-1s on a lot of, chatterbaits, jackhammers, and the 7-to-1s I use on a lot of my crankbait stuff like that. So that's pretty much the reels that I use. Especially with the reaction baits, the casting ability of the dial is incredible. So casting those light little baits, it can sure
Right.
cast them good. So,
and anybody that's not, and I would imagine by now everybody is pretty familiar with the T-wing system on those dial reels, but it's impressive. I mean, it really does make a difference in your cast. And when you look at it, it's one of those things that, wow, why didn't I think of that? Because it just makes way too much sense, right?
Right. Yeah. Just open it up and get a cast.
Yeah.
So.
Instead of that little bitty hole.
Right.
Let's see. What is this question right here? Sonny wants to know what your smaller size casting jig setup is like for a 1/4 ounce jig.
1/4 ounce jig. That's Sonny Hawk.
Yes, it is.
Oh, Sonny. His dad knows how to.
Oh yeah.
Dad Roy Hawk. He knows how to get him on a jig. Yeah.
We had Roy on a couple weeks ago, man. What a another fisherman that's a super guy. What a surprise, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, me and Roy know each other really well. So Sonny and I know each other pretty good. But yeah, as a light jig, I use a spinning rod a lot on a 1/4 ounce jig, especially this time of year. I'll just micro it down and I'll use pretty stiff spinning rod with 10-pound leader to 30-pound braid. That's pretty much what I'll use on that.
How much is braid changed fishing a spinning rod?
A lot. I still haven't adapted too much to the drop shot deal with the braid. I'm sure if I went to a lot of those places like those guys fish the St. Lawrence and stuff like that, obviously I would use it. But out west, I really haven't felt a big need for it yet from the drop shot. But everything else, I use braid. So I don't know why I don't do it on the drop shot yet. It's probably a mental thing more than anything. But how fishermen are with the mental the game. So
sure.
I think that's probably why. But anything else, I've used braid on the spinning rod, and it's been what a changing experience. And like I said, having line being so expensive, and being able just to put braid on and have it last for a while, and just putting leaders is pretty nice.
Right, as long as you can see the tie of the leader.
Right.
And it's coming. If it's not there yet, it's coming.
It's coming. I'm pretty bummed because I'm like, oh man, I hope I can see them bedfish this year coming up.
How about Logan wants to know what your favorite Daiwa reel is?
Favorite Daiwa reel is probably of course the Steez. That's just their top of the line stuff, and it's so nice and light and casts so well. So it's hard not to like the Steez.
Well, man, we've gotten a bunch of information out of you tonight. I feel like
it's all good.
What have you got planned? What have you got planned for next year for 22?
I'll probably stay out west this year. Well, I am going to stay out west. We have a lot of opportunities out here, and me and having a family now, it's hard for me to travel and just decide now that hey, I'm going to go chase this dream of making this and making that when I can stay out west and have a good living for my family. So, and we have a lot of opportunities out here this year, and actually every year we've been very fortunate that everybody's supported the West Coast for so long, and with MLF and bass used to be out here, and we have one bass, and one bass is phenomenal. They've kept me alive for years. So, and Wild West is stepping up. So there's a lot of big changes, and the West Coast has a lot of opportunities for a lot of good days of good paydays. So I'm looking forward to staying out west again, and obviously fishing the Colorado River and going to Clear Lake in the Delta and try to catch a couple tens.
Yeah, it's I talk to Ish a lot. We're good buddies, and the stories, every day it's a story with Ish. He's either offshore or catching big bass somewhere.
Right.
And y'all definitely have amazing fisheries out there.
Oh, yeah.
The U.S. Open is probably the most overlooked big tournament on the planet. We had Roy on a couple of weeks ago, and again, a class act, but Bass 365, we'll break a little news right now, will be at the U.S. Open next year with all our West Coast buddies. So
nice.
pretty excited about that one. You know, it's we got a little bit of downtime here, but it seems like it's I'm ready to get back fishing.
Absolutely.
No
Yeah,
doubt.
your guys are just getting cold, and like our cold days over here at Havasu, I think it's been still but 85 degrees every day. So when we get cold, it's 70. You know, and that's the problem when
crazy.
I get to freezing places. I'm really cold, and that's when I don't operate very well. So
And is there, and that's a good question. Is there anything, coming from a warm climate like that where you've lived your whole life, is there any way you adapt to those 50-degree days?
Yeah, I think for me, I swear it takes a while, and I don't know, I don't know how true it is, but it feels like when you've lived out in this heat, like, sometimes in the summer, or not sometimes, most of the time, for at least a month, a period of time, it's hotter than 118 every day. And I think your body just changes of being in that heat, continuously. And then having that dry heat is completely different than out where, you have the heat and your humidity and you're sweating. And I think it changes your whole chemicals and chemistry of your body. So when you go out there, and it's cold to the bone. Because it's not even that cold. Sometimes it's 40, but just the dampness, I think, gets in me, and it'll take me sometimes like 3 to 5 days before I'm kind of acclimated to it. So if I only get a couple of days of practice, which I usually only get a couple of days of practice everywhere I go, so a couple of days, I'm still trying to figure out how to stay warm and not worry about bass. So.
Right.
Sometimes
I hate the cold, man. I absolutely hate the cold. And people have always said that out in Arizona where you're at, well, it's 110 degrees, but it's no humidity. 110 is hot. It's hot. It is a different kind of heat, but
different. Totally different.
It's dang sure hot.
Totally
but the cold is the cold, and it sucks. So I gotta throw out a little mention to one of our sponsors. It's Blackfish Gear. They make the absolute best cold weather gear I've ever worn, and
that's good.
Good stuff. So if you're like me and you get cold, check them out. They'll keep you warm. Sean wanted to know, what tournament are you looking most forward to this year?
Man, I don't know, man. One Bass put a new one in the works this year. It's Lake Mojave, and Lake Mojave is just an awesome fishery. It's a place that's underrated, and a lot of people don't really know about it, which I kind of keep that to myself, and a lot of people don't know, which is good. But it's one of the best smallmouth fisheries that I've ever been to, and they get bigger and bigger every year. They're getting fed again with trout way up north, so we got trout in there now, and the gizzard shad and the crawdad population, and it gets windy there so much that I think a lot of guys don't go there. But if the couple calm days that you get, there's some days in the spring you catch 50 to 60 fish a day, and they're all 3 to 6 pounders, all smallmouth. So you don't get that on the West Coast very much, besides like Columbia River or something like that, and some smaller lakes. But this is a big size, pretty big lake, so it's a really cool fishery. And One Bass put that on their agenda. I don't know how they put it in March. It should be huge weights. The only problem is it blows pretty bad in March. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe two out of the 3 days would be canceled because of the wind, and that's the only problem with that place, because it blows a lot, and especially in March. It'll blow 50 miles an hour out of the north, and it runs north to south, so it'll be 8 or 9 foot where they're launching. So if it does that, it won't be good. But hopefully we have super nice weather for that whole week, and it's fishable.
Right. Well, daggone, man. Any exciting new sponsor deals or anything like that you're working on for next year? Or
no, just same stuff. Just I don't know what boat I'm going to get yet for next year. What that's going to be. I haven't got that far yet, as I was running the Bass Nation boat all year, and that's up now. So I haven't decided what way I'm going to go and what I'm going to do, but it's getting pretty down to the wire. But other than that, just the same great sponsors I've had for a long time, with Evergreen, of course, and my buddy Jay at Life Source Water. He's kept me alive for a long time, and obviously electric and roboworm. Those ones are pretty much, you know, that's about it. That's pretty much what I got.
So guys, we're you know, we're getting close on time here, but I will tell you that if you want to see the absolute best bass fishing video ever, and I will tell you that I think Justin and Sean and Matt Newman and I all became friends over this video. It's the Bass Stars. Go look it up on YouTube.
Big Bait Posse. Yeah, Big Bait Posse too. Yeah.
They were so far, y'all were so far ahead of your time. I mean, what's going on now with YouTube? Y'all were doing 10 years ago, and in my opinion, doing it much better. So
yeah. It was a really cool deal to do for sure.
Maybe we can bring that thing back one day. That would be
we'd like to try to do that someday. Maybe get another video going or something.
Well, I think I know a guy that can help you make that happen. So I'm definitely excited about it. Justin, again, man, thanks for your time. And, you know, enjoy your family, because before you know it, it's going to be time to get back out there on the road and get back to work. But guys, do me a favor, go follow Justin on all his social outlets. You won't find a better person. And you know, if you got a swim bait question, I'm sure if you drop him a DM, he'll get right back to you on it. But Cooper's telling me it's most of the fans know Cooper. He's my goofy sidekick here. He's telling me it's time to wrap this thing up. But anything you want to touch on before we get off here, Justin?
No, just like I said, everyone that hasn't checked out Evergreen, go check them out. They have, like I said, everything is you know, done perfectly. So when they do it, they do it right. So just go, please check them out.
That's right, guys. Evergreen Tackle Warehouse, you know, stocks just about everything they got here in the States, and yeah, it's worth giving them a shot. Go out there, throw that big swim bait. You might just happen to catch a fish of a lifetime, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, commitment.
All right, buddy. All right. I'll talk to you soon. Good night, everybody, and we'll see you next week for another live cast.
Cool. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.